Hey, it's me, Tavoin. So this character is supposed to represent Imoen from the original Baldur's Gate and Baldur's Gate 2 games, and so I'm going to recreate her as best I can. And I think, interestingly, this is one of the few times where the Dark Urge background is very fitting for a character from the original Baldur's Gate games. She was a human, and she was in Baldur's Gate and Baldur's Gate 2 2nd edition, rogues were called thieves, actually, but I will pick the appropriate starting class here, which is rogue. So her background is automatically haunted one, which kind of sadly gives her medicine and intimidation proficiencies, which isn't really very fitting for Imoen, but the origin is fitting for her. Now for her abilities, as I've mentioned in some of my other videos that try to recreate characters from the original Baldur's Gate games, we are limited here in the number of stat points we can distribute. So I've gone for dexterity and intelligence 16 because I am going to multiclass her later, and constitution 14 because I want her to be able to survive. If I could, I would have a high wisdom and high charisma. Her only really low stats in the original games was strength, to be honest. As for her proficiencies, she gets an extra one from being human and a whole bunch from being a rogue. She also gets expertise, and to make sure she's the roguish rogue that I can make her, I'm going to give her expertise in sleight of hand and stealth. Her proficiencies are also acrobatics to represent the fact that she could get around Candlekeep and sneak around Candlekeep. I'm sure she must have been acrobatic in some ways. And then because she grew up in basically a massive library, I gave her proficiency in Arcana and Investigation. I've tried to recreate her appearance as best I can. We are limited with the number of faces we have. I'm going to go and copy her appearance from Baldur's Gate 2, the portrait from Baldur's Gate 2, where she does have a scar over her eye, although it's not as pronounced as this, and also there wasn't one on the chin. But I've tried to pick the best hairstyle, closest hairstyle I could. Picked one of the pink hair colours, but the facial structure just isn't the same. I can't do much about that though. Anyway, I'm going to go and start playing with her, and I'll come back every few levels to show you how I've leveled her up. So I just got to level 2, I'm on the beach, and there's no choice to be made here, no multi-classing to be done. Just going to go second level in Rogue. She gives in to the urge this time.
This branch of flesh is begging to be pruned, and its sap sucked from.
I just got to level 3, and so I get to pick the subclass for the rogue. And I'm going to pick arcane trickster. I think this really fits with Imoen. Plus, in the Magic the Gathering cards, Imoen is described as a mystic trickster. I think very close to being arcane trickster. For the cantrips, I picked light because she's human and she doesn't have dark vision, so that's nice to have. And then friends, I think this is to kind of lean into the more dark urge side of things, because friends is really a hostile cantrip as things go. You wouldn't want to have this cast on you if you were in any sort of world. Having someone using magic to persuade you is not very nice, really. She also does get, as part of the arcane trickster subclass, she gets mage hand, a special mage hand. Mage hand, Legerdemain, so it is invisible. I'll show you that later. As for her spells, picking disguise self so she can walk around. This will also help me get through some parts of the game a bit more quickly. And also Tasha's hideous laughter. And lastly, going to pick up shield just to make sure she doesn't die. At level 4, her path now diverges into being a wizard. And this follows on from the Siege of Dragonspear and Baldur's Gate 2, where she is dual classed into a rogue, thief wizard. So we're going to go with wizard the rest of the way. Now her intelligence is 16, which is far cleverer than me, and she realizes she's got scrolls in her bag already for Firebolt, Chill Touch, and Shocking Grasp. So she's going to ignore those 3 and go for these cantrips here. She's going to ignore Minor Illusion because she knows she's going to pick up a stronger version of it later. Going to pick spells that don't appear on scrolls very much or at all, meaning here Enhanced Leap, Long Strider, and Find Familiar. And then she's going to scribe a whole bunch of spells as soon as she's taken this level. And then at level 5, she levels up in Wizard again. I've already chosen the Illusion subclass. And what this gives her right now is improved Minor Illusion, so you can cast Minor Illusion as a bonus action. So at level 6, just like before, we're going to continue leveling up in Wizard, so we're now a level 3 Wizard. And she's already picked up quite a few scrolls ahead of time, so she's just going to pick Invisibility to lean into the illusion aspect of her build, and Knock because this might help her open some doors that perhaps can't be lockpicked. At level 7, she gets to pick another cantrip. I'm going to go with Poison Spray because I've already got minor illusion. I don't think she needs to use Blade Ward, and as far as I'm concerned, there's no other cantrip to choose from. For her spells, we're going to go with Arcane Lock. It's not exactly illusion, but it's the opposite of knock in a sense. It locks up a door instead of unlocking a door. And then Crown of Madness. There aren't many spells to pick from because she's learnt so many spells from scrolls now. And for her feat, she's going to pick an ability score improvement of Intelligence +2. Tavoen is now a level 5 wizard, a level 3 rogue. And because of the way wizard spell scribing works, she's actually been able to scribe a fair few level 3 spells into her spellbook because we have been finding scrolls and buying scrolls from vendors. So when we come to choosing spells, we don't have a huge choice left, which is good. And she's going to learn Fear again. I'm trying to pick one illusion spell per level if I can, and counterspell just because it's desperately needed inside this party. Once she reaches level 9, which is wizard level 6, she gains the ability to see invisibility until long rest. Unfortunately, this reveals her own invisible mage hand that she gets from being an arcane trickster, which is kind of a little bit annoying. As for her spells, there's barely any left to pick. I'm going to pick Haste and Glyph of Warding. I refuse to pick Phantasmal Force for Tavoen here. She's clever enough to know that she shouldn't be taking it. At level 10, she gets level 7 Wizard, and she continues just to pick out some spells. And just like before, she's been able to scribe some level 4 spells already before being able to pick some level 4 spells, which is why I don't have the full range of spells to pick from here. And she's going to pick up Greater Invisibility, again to go with the illusion, and Ice Storm because it's kind of a cool spell to have, especially since she's going to be fighting Ketheric very soon. Getting to level 11 gives Tavoen a level 8 in Wizard, so she gets to pick 2 more spells. Going to pick Phantasmal Killer, mostly because it's an illusion spell, and Wall of Fire because it's kind of a good spell to have. And for her feat, I'm going to use an ability improvement to increase her intelligence up to 20, just to represent her increasing expertise in casting arcane spells. And for her final level, level 12, which will be level 9 in Wizard, she gets to pick 2 more spells. There are only a few level 5 spells available because once again I've scribed her some spells already from some spell scrolls. So she's going to pick up Seeming because it's the last illusion spell available. And then Conjure Elemental. I'm just hoping to find Hold Monster on a scroll later. The next thing to go through are the items for Tavoen. And I've kind of split the items into 2 groups. The first group is made of items found relatively early in the game, as in Act 1. Maybe at the beginning of Act 2 for a couple of them. And then I've got a bunch of later game items which are obviously stronger, but we don't get them until the much higher levels. Of the first set of items, this is the one you might get last, but it's such a great helmet. Gives you +1 bonus to your spell save DC and initiative rolls, and it isn't even any armor, so it's good for any spellcaster really. The Cloak of Cunning Broom, so when the wearer disengages, they create a foggy cloud. This comes from the Last Light Inn, which you get to pretty early on in Act 2, at least you can do. The Graceful Cloth, this has been really good for Tavoen here, because she is our rogue, our lockpicker. And so her dexterity score gets increased by 2, so up to 18 for her, which improves her armor class, her initiative, and her dexterity skill checks. It says we get Cat's Grace, and this gives us advantage on dexterity skill checks. And take half damage from falling. Really, it's the advantage on dexterity checks. She's been able to open every single lock basically straight away, with no problems. Plus we get Nimble as a Cat, +1 bonus to dexterity saving throws and increased jump distance. Nice little bonus there. This comes from Esther just outside Kreshelek, the Temple of Lathander. And just like the Graceful Cloth comes from Lady Esther, so can the Winter's Clutches. When the wearer deals cold damage, inflict 2 turns of Encrusted with Frost. And so this gives disadvantage on dexterity saving throws to the enemies, so this links up nicely with other characters who force dexterity saving throws. And if you get enough turns with Encrusted with Frost, the enemy can become frozen, but the constitution saving throw is kind of quite low. I rarely got to the point where I did have 7 turns of frost on an enemy, so the second effect here didn't really come up that much. The Boots of Stormy Clamour come from the Myconid colony from Mammalium if you complete the quest for him. But when the wearer inflicts a condition upon a hostile creature, they also inflict 2 turns of reverberation, which then gives the enemies a -1 penalty to dexterity, constitution, and strength saving throws, which can stack with the Encrusted with Frost. So they get disadvantage on dexterity saving throws, and then penalties to dexterity saving throws as well. And if you get enough reverberation, you can make enemies fall prone potentially and take a tiny bit of damage. But these are really good at debuffing the enemies. For her necklace, I kind of switched the necklaces around. I didn't stick just to a single necklace. So the necklace of elemental augmentation can come from Kreshalek. So when one of your cantrips deals one of the kind of elemental damages, your spellcasting modifier gets added to the damage dealt, which is nice if she's run out of spell slots. You know, casting usually Rare Frost, to be honest, because we want to be dealing cold damage. This does a little bit of extra damage. I did also use the Pearl of Power amulet, which comes from Amelia, and Psychic Spark, also from the Myconid colony. So the Pearl of Power can replenish spell slots. Sometimes Shadowheart used this. It's not always Tavo when he used this, to be honest. And while she did no magic missile, so this helps her shoot out an extra magic missile and gets one extra use of it per long rest. And you can switch this in and out. For her rings, the Smuggler's Ring, just to make her even better at sleight of hand and stealth. And this comes from the river just where you meet Scratch. The other side of the river from where you meet Scratch, there's a skeleton hidden under a bush. And the Shapeshifter's Boon Ring. On this run, I may have gotten this in the Druid's Grove. If you kill the Strange Ox, you find this on their body. While shapeshifting or disguising self, gain a plus 1d4 bonus to all checks. So when I had to pick a lock, I would get her to cast Disguise Self, which she learned from Arcane Trickster. It's a ritual, and she got an extra 1d4 bonus here. So yeah, she was so good at opening locks throughout the game. Down at the bottom here, Morning Frost. You can construct this in the Underdark, and so when you deal cold damage, the wielder deals an additional 1 cold damage. I've always thought that's a bit sad. It's +1. I would like it to be higher, but whatever. It's okay. We get an extra 1d4 if you use this as a weapon. Dealing cold damage with the spell possibly inflicts Chill upon the target. Now, Chill is pretty cool. Affected entity is vulnerable to cold damage and resistant to fire damage. But when it says possibly inflicts Chill upon the target, the enemy has to make a DC 12 Constitution saving throw. So earlier on in the game, that was happening sometimes. Later on in the game, this was happening very rarely. But when it did happen on the following turn, a Rare Frost, at one point I did a critical hit with Rare Frost, like 78 damage. Because they were vulnerable to cold damage from the turn before. But it wasn't very reliable. But it's nice just to have this, because it stacks with the Boots of Stormy Clamor. If we inflict Shield, they get 2 turns of reverberation. So the Adamantine Shield comes from Grimforge, solid shield. Tavroin is a human, which is why she can wield it without any penalties. And if an attacker misses her, they're sent reeling, which means they get penalty to hit in subsequent turns, which is very nice. And then most of the time I kept her with the Bow of Awareness. She's proficient with short bows being a rogue, and this was just to give her, yeah, +1 bonus to initiative rolls, +1 weapon. In the early levels, she did use her short bow more often, but when sneak attack, when you're at level 3, is only 2d6, it kind of gets outdone by the cantrips fairly quickly if we're using the Necklace of Elemental Augmentation. Then later on, we get the Robe of the Weave. You get a +1 bonus to spell save DC and spell attack rolls. Armor class +2. Whenever the wearer succeeds a saving throw against the spell, they regain 1d6. I would say during combat, if I know I'm about to get into combat, I'd put this on. We get extra armor class and her spells are stronger and more likely to hit. Outside of combat, if I need dexterity skill checks, switch to the Graceful Cloth. Now, Morning Frost is okay, it's fine, but Margaheshkir is just the staff to have if you are a wizard. After equipping it, well, first of all, what does it do? Sorry. +1 bonus to spell save DC. Brilliant. Arcane Battery, we can cast the spell without using a spell slot. Brilliant. And to make up for her lack of wizard levels, for example, we can use Kareska's Favor, one of these once per short rest. We get access to a couple of spells that we can cast once per short rest, and one of them here is Chain Lightning. One of the downsides to this build is we don't get any level 6 spells or level 6 spell slots because our caster level isn't high enough. Margaheshkir and the Robe of the Weave can come from Ramazith's Tower. Spellcrux Amulet, again, potentially more for Shadowheart, to be honest, but this comes from the Warden in Moonrise Towers, so potentially towards the middle or end of Act 2. And this can just replenish spell slots. The Band of Mystic Scoundrel, I think this goes very well with the fact that she is an arcane trickster illusion wizard. So after hitting a creature with a weapon attack, which she can do with her bow, you can cast illusion or enchantment spells as a bonus action. And I always try to have some of those ready. Very nice for her, and I like the fact it's like Mystic Scoundrel, almost like Mystic Trickster. Least expected, a better short bow for her to use. While obscured in shadow, we get a +1d4 bonus to ranged weapon attacks, and it's just a +2 weapon. Let's put this on. And we get access to Blinding Shot, where we can possibly blind a target. Combined with the Band of Mystic Scoundrel, this can be pretty good. You can potentially blind an enemy and then get off a spell. Ketheric Shield from the end of Act 2, a shield that increases spell save DC even further, and gives advantage on dexterity saving throws and checks. And lastly, I don't really know how to pronounce this properly. Heracnea braces. This doesn't have to be towards the end of Act 2, but is on the way to Baldur's Gate in a way. You can cast Mage Hand as a bonus action. Cool. Because she has a special Mage Hand. Strength saving throws +1. Fine, I suppose. Nice to have. And Telekinesis, just an extra level 5 spell. In this run, I did kind of accidentally let her turn into the Slayer. That wasn't really done on purpose, but it is what it is. She is the Dark Urge after all, but Tavern and Imoen I think would resist trying to use this as much as possible. In fact, in the original Baldur's Gate games, she didn't get to turn into a Slayer. It was only the main character. So I haven't actually used this. She's got the option, but she's good at resisting. Right, I'm going to get into some fights and show you how this all works out. Alright, time for one of the most important battles in the whole game. I'm in the first round of combat, and I've killed one Githyanki, which meant that Tavern is now going at the same time as everyone else. So to make use of the Band of Mystic Scoundrel, which I've got on, I'm going to target this Gate Master. Very easy to hit, 95% chance. And then as a bonus action, I can use any of these enchantment or illusion spells. Hold Person is always a nice, strong spell to use. Perhaps Hypnotic Pattern, Confusion. Fear, they're just out of range, sadly. I'm going to go with Hypnotic Pattern because it's an illusion spell and, well, she's an illusion wizard and an arcane trickster. And managed to actually get all three of them. That wasn't very likely, but I'm glad it worked. It's a good start. This allows the party to go after the other Githyanki that are here. One nice thing about being multiclassed into a rogue is that we do have uses for bonus actions. Because wizards generally, not completely, but generally don't have much use for the bonus action. At least it's not built into the class. A few spells have it, maybe if they're dual wielding hand crossbows. But now as a rogue, level or 3 levels in rogue, she can now dash away to somewhere more useful. Was something I did more earlier on than later on, but something I did do is hide. So that when I do cast the spell, I have advantage. Or if I really want a sneak attack, I can do that. But now I've used my bonus action, it wouldn't be a good idea to use just a normal weapon attack because I don't have a bonus action to spare for the Band of Mystic Scoundrel. Now there aren't very many high level spells that actually have an attack roll. Past level 2 I think it is. Pretty much all of them are saving throw based. So if you are going to do this in the later levels, I would suggest casting a cantrip. Ooh, that was lucky. Because I've got the Necklace of Elemental Augmentation on, I get the +5 bonus to the damage there. Unfortunately, we don't get any sneak attack added to spells. It was possible in one of the earlier patches of the game, but they took it out. I guess they saw it as a bug. Since I use Hypnotic Pattern, this has been very easy. There's only 5 enemies anyway, because these guys didn't get a turn, so everyone else can focus their energies on taking out the others. Unfortunately, if you do damage an enemy, they are taken out of Hypnotic Pattern. Now, something interesting with the cloak. It's not really going to help here, but I just want to show you. If we disengage, this happens outside of combat as well. We create a cloud, a fog cloud. Now, here by itself isn't that useful, but you can create... And perhaps I could actually disengage twice. I've created a little wall of fog there, so he's going to have to come through the fog if he's going to get a line of sight to Tavern there. Right, these guys are just going to focus on Jitrai Harek. So here, the fog cloud didn't do anything. And I've got counterspell. I don't really need it for this fight, but we're going to be a wizard. Oh, hello. And then I can create a nice little combo. Let's get this dude wet. And then over here, we just need to cast a lightning spell or cold spell. I'm gonna go with this. 52 damage because he passed his saving throw. I just rolled a 20, so we got a 21 in total. I had a 5% chance of passing that. Oh well. But he doesn't stand a chance. Alright, perhaps I'll find one other fight If she finds herself surrounded by the undead inside a graveyard, she will do what any self-respectable wizard would do, and is run up to one of the undead and then disengage with her bonus action. Now, the reason she did that is because, one, this disengage creates a fog cloud, which I've shown you before. What I didn't show you before is that this basically inflicts a condition blinded on any enemy that's nearby, or anyone that's nearby, which then procs the Boots of Stormy Clamor. So just giving reverberation to this skeleton. And like any self-respecting wizard, she's going to cast a control spell. She doesn't want to cast Fireball because there's some poor little girl here. At least confusion won't get the little girl killed. There we are. She also gave out some more reverberation, and we'll just let these undead do their thing, which won't be very much. So a bit like with the other fight, while half of the enemies are being controlled, basically taken out of combat, we're going to focus on those that are going to potentially harm us. And we can let a light cleric do light cleric things. And so we can try and stack up this reverberation. There it is. That went from 1 to 3 turns of reverberation, even though it didn't show the animation for it. Now, since she's concentrating, we can't concentrate on anything else. Currently, there are only a few enemies around. Good bit of zapping there. Now, Fireball would be lovely here to try and save Druna Schweitz, but she's in the way. I could use Misty Step to Misty Step up to here, but because of our multi-class, you can dash with a bonus action, we'll probably get just close enough to actually use Lightning Bolt. And we're not going to get all of them, but I'll make sure we don't hit anyone in the background. But I would say that was pretty good and saved us a spell slot. Now, for some reason, these zombies did not do anything on their turn. Don't really know why, but we're not going to let them live. And then there's only one skeleton left. I don't see how this is going to be any problem at all. There we are. Now, before you disappear, I just want to show you what we can do with an invisible mage hand. First thing I want to do before I send it on its way is cast Cat's Grace. So what your mage hand can do is basically go and scout. One thing I'm not going to show you here, but is really useful, is that the mage hand can fly. This is useful potentially in other areas where there are lots of different elevations. Now the mage hand is going to wander around. Alright, now while am I doing this, I just want to show you the mage hand can attempt to disarm traps. Unfortunately, it's pretty bad. It's got no bonus to this, which is why I've cast Cat's Grace. Obviously, guidance could work as well. It does become visible at this point, sadly. But instead of putting my characters in danger, I can put my mage hand in danger. I'd rather lose a mage hand than a bunch of hit points. So we can go around trying to disarm traps. Whew. Thankfully, it's working. While I was practicing this, I was doing very badly indeed. Oh, there's the last trap, I think. Try and disarm it. Am I going to be 3 for 3? Yes, I am. Awesome. Brilliant. So there we have it. Now, I will say that wasn't necessarily the best place to go and scout around because the mage hand didn't need to be invisible there, but there might be areas where there are enemies that can't see invisibility, in which case you'd be able to actually scout around ahead of time. So let me know what you think of Tavoen and what changes you would make to her. I just want to show you the annoyance of having Arcane Trickster with someone who can see invisibility revealed immediately. Oh, I don't have one ready. If you short rest, they actually become invisible again. Thank you for watching and making it this far. Thank you to all the members of my channel, and hopefully I'll catch you in the next one.